We very warmly welcome today's guest, Megan Barker. She rides on the road and she rides on the track. And she even won the World Championship in a team pursuit on a track for Great Britain last year. Today's topics will be her career so far, her goals in the next season, the Olympic year, and very special news on her road career. Enjoy!
Hi Meg, thanks so much for joining me. I guess it's an easy question to start with, but like, how did you even get into cycling?
It's quite a boring story actually. Like my family weren't cyclists or anything, but they've always been a very active family. But yeah, me and my sister Eleanor, we just used to go swimming lessons at the leisure centre like 5 minutes from our house. And there's an outdoor velodrome there. So that's
Oh
where the
wow.
Mainly Flyers club is based. So on a Thursday evening, we'd go to the leisure centre for swimming lessons, and there'd be the Thursday evening Mainly Flyers session on. And I think I hated swimming, and I was just like, "Can I do that instead?" But I was pretty shy, so I dragged my sister with me. She's 3 years older, so yeah, we just went down there instead. And then before we knew it, we were there like 3 days a week, training with the local club. Yeah.
That's insane though. That like, I don't know. Like the picture I had in my head was like, my sister did it, and that sort of competitive sibling rivalry. It's kind of you dragged her into it, which is kind of wild as the younger sister.
Yeah,
I
I
think that's
mean,
incredible.
I was only 7,
Oh
so it was
wow.
obviously nothing serious. And our first session was a Saturday morning, and the club had gone up. They used to do trips away, so they'd all gone away. So it was actually just the two of us that day, and like
No
on a
way.
track bike for the first time, we both stopped pedaling, went over the bars. It was a disaster, but for some reason we went back. So yeah,
Yeah, and that's one of those mistakes though that you make once and then don't really make again.
yeah,
Like
definitely.
I've done a bit of grass track racing, which is like for those who don't know, it's like a velodrome, but it's just grass.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's not banked; it's just flat, which makes cornering fun. Um, and you get all the bumps. That's again quite interesting. But I did a lunge for the line, like a sprint, and a normal sprint, you lock your legs out,
Yeah.
and very quickly you're like, oh, I can't do that, cannot do that.
Yeah.
Um, and so how did that like? I know you said it grew quite quickly, like you got very keen into it. At what point did it start to become competitive for you? And were there any events that you kind of specialized in when you were younger, or were you just a sort of generalist?
I think for me, because Elle's 3 years older, it probably got serious a bit younger because she was going, as a
Hmm.
teenager to these national series or whatever. So I may as well go. And for a while, I actually raced up an age because they wouldn't have my age at the races that she was going to. But like, if I had to go anyway, I may as well have raced. So yeah, I think from probably 8, to be honest, we were racing. Not, it wasn't crazy serious because I was 8, but we were going on trips with Mainly Flyers, and they'd host like the mini league, which was a league every week through the summer. So yeah, racing from about 8. Um, but I guess how serious can it be when you're 8 years old? I don't know.
Well, yeah, but then at what stage did it kind of become like, oh, this could be my career? Because like I've seen you did the Omloop Borsela like as a junior, like 2 years in a row, and is it Healthy Aging Junior Tour?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, was it at that stage that you're like, oh yeah, this could really be a thing, and I could make a living, make a career out of this, or yeah, at what point did that kick in?
I think younger than I thought actually, because um, we found this scrapbook that I'd made as a kid, and I must have been probably 10. And you had to do it at school, and it was like you drew your dream house, and then you wrote what your dream career was, and mine was professional cyclist. So I think
Oh
I
wow.
knew. I don't know whether I even knew that it was possible, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. But yeah, as a junior, You know, I never applied for university. I applied for the British Cycling Academy. Like, that was just my only career path line that I wanted to do. So yeah, I think the dream was quite young, but the actual reality probably as a junior.
Yeah. Wow. And was track always like the goal? Because again, certainly from what First Cycling tells me, they have a great stats website. Your Palmares is a little patchy on their website for some reason. But I saw you did things like the Rasnaban, which is a great Irish stage race, and there's a quite like you look at who was in your year, so to speak, like, and there was a ton of really notable riders. And likewise in the national championships, like there's always people around you. Like I think you finished fifth at Stamfordham, and there's
Yeah.
like Anna Kay's behind you or Anna Henderson, one of the two Annas. And it's like, whoa, there's some really big hitters that you're mixing it up with. But then or certainly from for what I'm used to, like I know you from the track, from the TP. So yeah, like I guess sorry for the really long question, but was track the goal always, or was road ever an option? Like how did it sit for you?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because when I was a junior, you know, my whole youth and junior career, when I was really young, I did cyclocross, track and road, and then I kind of drifted out cyclocross, and I always did track and road. But in terms of having a career and making money and be able to do it full time, when I was 18, track was the only option for girls. There wasn't like the world tour like there is now for women, and we all knew we needed to be on the academy, which was very track specific at that point in time. So I think it's, you know, that kind of path led me to track at that point. But even then, still we'd race road with Team Breeze, like the academy team. Yeah, and I had some decent results. I just think the more I focused on track, the less confident I became in the road, and the more gaps I had between the road races, the more scary it became. And I think, yeah, it was just a confidence thing, and also I'm quite a punchy rider. And over the years, you know, the women's races have become longer, which is great for most people, but not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, racing 150k, it just didn't suit me. So I guess naturally, as that got longer and as I got older and knew kind of what my strengths were, that's when I kind of realized crits and track are more my speciality.
Yeah, and we'll get on to crits in a minute because there's a couple of points to touch on there. But I find that really interesting about the confidence, because to me there is nothing more terrifying than going around a track on a fixed wheel where you've got no brakes, and if someone stacks it in front of you, that's it, you're over your handlebars easy. Whereas on the road you've got a few escape routes. So I kind of find that really interesting that for you it was almost the inverse. But yeah, let's talk about crits then. Obviously, you've had some great results. There's a first at Glacials in the Tour Series when that was still running. I still think it's a shame that doesn't run anymore, because that was a huge thing for everyone. And you also got first in the Nationals, so your current circuit race champion. Going into either of those races, were you kind of full of confidence and going, oh yeah, I've got this? Or were you kind of like, oh, I don't know, I'll see what happens?
Very different approaches. So I think through 2021, 2022, I was riding for Cam's Basso at the time. And like winning things and have, you know, my confidence was really building. And I think, you know, 2021 especially, I think I'd won Ilkley and a few Tour Series in a row, and we won the Tour Series overall. And you know, I was going into crits thinking like, I want to win, and I can win. And it's, you know, that year I probably would have I couldn't do nationals because it clashed with the track world champs that year. You know, but that would have been a huge aim, and I would have felt pretty confident. Whereas the year I actually won nationals last year, I didn't have a team. I was just racing as an individual, and I hadn't raced a crit all year. All I'd raced that year was team pursuit. So I had no confidence, and I kind of just entered it. Because my boyfriend and my sister, they also race. We just all went up together. So I entered it and had no expectations, and was super nervous just to be in the race, not for any results, just to be cornering and in a bunch and in the wet potentially. And I won. So yeah, it was unexpected. Like, I think in previous years, I would have put way more expectation on myself, and I would have been really gutted to have not won off the back of winning tour series and things like that. But last year, no expectation, and it happened. So yeah, it was like, it's always been one of my major goals of my career is to win crit nationals. And I didn't expect it to be last year, but I'm really happy that it happened.
Yeah, and you put some really good, like, amazing riders behind you as well. Like, because Kat Ferguson she's got so much upside. Like, it's incredible. I can't even remember who came third anymore. I looked it up and then I've lost. Sorry, who was it?
Maddie Leach.
Ah, yes. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you put some really good names behind you. I think it's also, I've just realised from what you've said, like, both men's and women's were won by privateers, so to speak. Like, because Ollie just went on this mad breakaway. You did it in a sprint, but both of you were independent riders, which is, I don't know if that's ever happened before. I assume it must have by probability and pure numbers, but it's incredible that it happened this time. Will we get to see the British bands in any races coming up, or are you not really going to do many crits this year?
It's tricky because, yeah, as you said earlier, with the lack of tour series, which I'm so gutted about, it was my favourite thing. They would be what would come before the national champs.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know, Otley, Ilkley, all the national series, they're after the national champs. So
of course, yeah.
yeah, the only option is to find some more local, regional type crits, which I'm hoping to find because I do really want to race in the bands. So yeah, I need to have a little look. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not that much going on until after the nationals. So
Yeah, how do you even, national jerseys are something I'll never experience myself, but like the admin of it is kind of interesting to me because, like, I assume if you're in a team, the team sorts it, but you're a privateer. So how do you have to go about, like, trying to get some logos put on it, or do you just ride it plain and then do you have to pick some white bibs to go with it, or do you go black bibs? I don't know. It's a controversial choice, but like, how do you the whole admin? It might be boring to some, and I apologize to those who it is, but to me, it's fascinating. Like, how do you go about sorting all that out?
yeah, well, last year I had this trouble because I won, and then I think Otley is 3 days after nationals. Oh, sorry, so after national road race. So the crit's the Friday, the road race on the Sunday, and then Otley was on the Wednesday. And I was like, well, you either just wear your podium jersey, which I didn't want to wear because I want to keep it nice. So I kind of just got in touch with British Cycling. Like, luckily I'm part of the British Cycling program, so it was a bit easier for me. But they gave me like a Zwift national champs jersey that they had, so I just kind of raced in that with British Cycling shorts for Otley. But this year I'm actually riding for a team. I don't think it hasn't been announced yet, but a British team. So I've got some pretty cool kit coming, which is exciting. So I don't have to sort it myself anymore.
Ooh, I really want to know now. We'll have to maybe discuss this when we're not
say, yeah, is Techers the crit?
No, I was gonna.
So yeah.
I am not lying. I was gonna say that, and I know I've met Alec. He's amazing, and
Yeah.
he's such a good eye for design. Like, that national kit is gonna slap hard. Because I've seen what they did for, I can't even remember who it was now, but someone won the, I think gravel nats.
Yeah, I
Someone from
think
Techers did.
we had Jacob won gravel and Joe Holt won a few track national.
Yeah.
So yeah, the kit's lovely. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's amazing. That is such a good team for you as well, I feel. Like,
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah, when I won last year, I really was like, okay, I know who I want to ride for now.
and I'll have to tell my eldest daughter because she loves the kit because it's got a dinosaur on it. And so you might jump up in the ranks of being a favorite rider. Yeah. Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah,
Well, if it's been announced, we'll make sure this bit stays in. We'll play it by ear, obviously.
yeah, okay.
But obviously, yeah, this, not just this new team, which may or may not be a mystery. Like, it's a big year for you because it's the Olympics, and I assume that's on your radar, being a team pursuiter. Yeah, how do you cope with going into an Olympic year, and also how's it been with it only being 3 years rather than the standard 4?
Yeah, the 3-year situation for me, I've actually enjoyed because it's just, I don't know, I guess it's condensed. Basically, I missed out on Tokyo in 2020,
Oh no.
and I, was waiting for the games to be over so that I could step back in and race. And then that getting delayed a whole year meant I felt like I was sat waiting for it to be over for a whole year, so that I could kind of show what I had again. And yeah, so the fact that it's been 3 years is almost condensed the excitement, and everything's moved faster. And yeah, I don't know, I think I've enjoyed it not having to wait around.
Yeah, I suppose that is one of the advantages.
Yeah.
Is it just the TP that you're targeting? Because I know there's also the Omnium as a potential option. Being a crit style rider, I can't say that it wouldn't suit you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I've only focused on Team Suit for a few years now. So, there's only a certain amount of spots at the Olympic Games,
Of
and
course.
we've got riders like Katie Archibald, we've had Laura Kenny, my sister, and, pre-Tokyo, there was not too much point in trying to make the Omnium or the Madison because we had the world's best Omnium and Madison riders. So for me, I just really targeted Team Suit because that was my way in. If I was really good at one thing, then maybe I could go. And yeah, that's kind of continued, to be honest, through this Olympic cycle. Like, I get my bunch racing side in the crits, and then when it comes to GB, I'm really just focusing on Team Suit. And I think it has helped, like trying to be really good at one thing rather than trying to do multiple things and maybe not being quite as good at each one of them. So yeah, I'm a pretty specific, focused on one event kind of person. But I think so far the last year or two it's been paying off. So
Yeah, definitely. And this is a question I meant to ask much earlier, so I'll ask it now as kind of a segue. Like, growing up, did you have anyone that you kind of idolized? Because obviously I guess you're a few years younger than me. So potentially those riders that I was watching and even a contemporary of, you might have even looked up to and seen as like, oh, I'd love to be like that person. So was there anyone that you really, looked up to?
I'm not sure really. I think my earliest memories will be Nicole Cook,
Wow.
because she's
A fellow
Welsh.
Welsh woman, yeah.
Yeah. And like I remember going to, they kind of had like a parade type thing after the games for her, and yeah, like they're some of my earliest memories of having maybe like a role model in cycling. But I think I've luckily always had my sister 3 years ahead of me, and she went to Junior Worlds and got silver. The next year she went back, she won, and like it's a pretty kind of handed to me role model where I can literally see her day-to-day life and what goes on behind the scenes to get to where she's got. So yeah, it always, not that I don't like the question, but I always feel like my answer's really cringe because it's my sister. But yeah.
No, because it makes a lot of sense, and it's in some ways it's a better role model than, you know,
Yeah.
because I look up to Calf, but I don't see what he does every day. You know, I would have loved to have been like him. Obviously, people who know me might know that I was a bit of a climber in my youth. But there's no way I could mix it up in a bunch sprint. Like, no, no thanks. Again, it just terrifies me. Give me a punchy climb, and Peak Districts is maybe too long, but like those Lincolnshire climbs that do exist, it's not just flat. That's more my scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that it's good that you had like almost a live-in role model just to be like, oh yeah, okay, that's what I've got to do when I'm 18. Cool.
Yeah, I think it made everything a lot more like, if you see it, you can achieve it. Another crazy thing to say, but like it
I
just
mean, it's
felt
true.
really
Like,
possible. Yeah, because she was doing it. So yeah.
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, let's talk about team shooting then. Because when it goes right, it is like poetry in motion, really. When it goes wrong, it looks like a bag of spanners. And like, yeah, how did you become kind of fascinated with it? Was it just something that you were good at, and you're like, oh well, I might as well keep doing this because this is a route in, and this is, what will pay the bills? Or what is there like this kind of love of the art of it?
I think just starting off within the GB program from 18, team pursuit was our main thing. We train quite specifically for team pursuit because for women we didn't have Madison at the time, so it was team pursuit and it was Omnium. So you had 4 people that could get an Olympic medal if you focused on this team pursuit, and then you'd have 1 rider that would race the Omnium. So it's kind of the base of our program was focused on team pursuit. So I guess that was kind of the natural introduction into it. But I just love the training. I'm a punchy rider, and a lot of our efforts are short, hard, repeated drills, and I just enjoy that. I like going to the gym, and we have to work on our strengths because we have to get quite a big gear up to speed off the start. So yeah, we get to do long road rides, we get to do track sessions, we get to do gym, we do a lot of turbo stuff. We just do quite a combination of different things in training, and I think I find that enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting. Like, how have you actually seen how? Well, I assume you have. Like, how the event has evolved. Because it's certainly for me, I was fascinated by the emergence of the KGF team in the men's side, which later became like Hoob, and
Yeah.
like all the stuff that Dan Bigham was kind of figureheading, I guess. Was that something you looked at and went, oh, that's really interesting, could we implement it? Or did you just go, this is what works for us, I'm happy just to, let's not rock the boat almost?
I think so much has changed. So like when I was younger, we'd just be like, okay, half lap turns, change back in, maybe a lap if you're feeling good. And that was as simple as it was. And now there's so much thinking and strategy and who's where and what lap schedules, and we have graphs. You can see exactly what split someone's done for each half a lap, who's increased, who's decreased. We got videos, you see how good your changes were, analyze everything. Obviously the aero side of cycling's just gone mad in the last few years. So there's more time invested into aero testing on the track, wind tunnel stuff, dialing in your new positions. Like, I feel like when I first started, it was so simple, and there's just so much. And obviously, I I wasn't training for the Olympics then, so they
Yeah.
keep it a lot more simple when you're 18 and you're just learning the basics. But yeah, I think to watch, it looks like 4 people just riding around the track in a line, but there's so much detail that goes into that, and analysis before and after. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed is like, yeah, as you said, like when we were both growing up, that kind of era, like it was seen as almost a bad thing to drop down to 3 riders because you're like, oh my god, someone's struggling. How dare they? Like,
Yeah.
and almost like the ideal state would be 4 riders until about what 1.5 to go, like 1.5 laps. By the way, not yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like if you dropped a rider with 1.5K to go, which is what 6 laps, that's not a bad thing. That's just that's clearly their strategy. And you know, have you actually started training where you just practice riding with 3 for a while instead of just riding for 4? Because obviously, if you train for 4 all the time, you get used to that motion. Whereas when you go down to 3, it's a lot. I guess it's a quicker change in that turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much is that practiced?
Yeah, so the last kind of season, last 2023, and then so far this season, we've been kind of trying strategies and different people and who's gonna the bail rider. So we pretty much we always plan someone's gonna bail. It's just who and at what point. So yeah, you would not finish with 4 riders. We'd always finish with 3 now. In training, we generally train with 4. But in training, someone might bail, so then there'll be 3. Or if we are training the week before a competition, we'll generally do like a race day in Manchester. So then we'll train our strategy, and there'll be someone that's bailing, and then someone that's got to change for 3. But it's quite often the same person that bails. Well, the same position that bails, so the same person that then will have the change for 3. So it's pretty drilled, but we are in Olympic year kind of just trying a few different things just to make sure we've got the right strategy.
Yeah, how do you cope then when, like, just say that out of the 4 of you, Katie's on a bad day, for an example, and she has to go, and she wasn't the planned bail rider, but first couple of laps, she's like, oh heck, this ain't like I guess how easy is it to communicate when you're all riding like right on your limit or right on that sort of razor's edge of being on your limit and go, I need to be the bail here, like we have to change. Like, is that even possible?
Yeah, I think, and it probably happens more often than you think, like that something happens that shouldn't have happened, and you just kind of have to salvage it. And to be honest, in the last season, like we've fallen apart, I suppose, where there's kind of gaps more often than we normally would because we are trying to push the limit and test different things, and it's not always going to go right. So yeah, it does go wrong more than you think. But so I'll just say, for example, in Adelaide Nations Cup a few weeks ago, I wasn't the planned bail, but I'd just come off the back of a chest infection. We weren't sure what was going to happen, and I didn't feel good. And I'd done my second turn, and I got back on the back, and I was there, and I wasn't getting dropped, but there was still about 5 laps to go, and you have to make that call before the next rider's going to change. So it's quick thinking, but I got out of the way. I shouted 3. So the person on the front knew to go shorter. They have to get back in. You kind of just have to adapt to what's going on, but it's one word shouts. You get one word. So
I bet.
yeah, I shouted 3. That would tell them there's only 3 people left. You have to get back in. So you just kind of have to adapt pretty quickly.
Sorry to make such a sudden cut here unexpectedly. I just have to jump in to say we had some technical difficulties, but Meg, being awesome as she is, she hung around and we tried to go again and it went well. If you fancy subscribing or liking this video, Or just leave me a comment. Feel free to do so. We would love it. On goes the chat.
Sorry about that. We're now all sorted. So thank you for bearing with and for your patience with that. We were talking about Team Pursuit and yeah, the limited time you get to even communicate, which I think is incredible that like everyone looks so fluid, and you're saying it goes wrong a lot, like relative to what you see. Um, I get like I used to play water polo, and we'd always say there's two games going on. There's what you see on the surface and what you see under, like you don't see under the surface, and it
Yeah.
kind of feels like that with TP now because you know there's what the viewer sees, and then what the experts see. I suppose that's probably true of many sports actually, but like what you know is actually happening. Um, yeah, in those situations, like how easy is it to stay calm and go? Because to me, I'd be like, oh, my legs are not where they need to be. Panic, and hitting all the red buttons and everything going on. Is that easy for you to manage and compartmentalize, or do you equally panic like I would?
You can't panic really. Yeah, I think you do have like the race mode, so I think you think it allows you to kind of make those decisions faster, and make the calls. But yeah, sometimes it just goes wrong, and someone in the team might have gone too deep and not made the call, and then there's three of us and someone can't keep up, and you have to finish with three riders. So yeah, that's when it goes disastrously wrong, and that's what you want to try and avoid. um I think it happened to us at the Europeans in the final a few
Mm,
couple months ago. um but it happens. Like, I think, when I was growing up and I was watching the girls race the Olympics or the Worlds, and they were on a winning streak, they basically won everything they
mm,
did. I just thought they were just robots. I didn't even really think of them as people. Like, nothing could go wrong. They were going to win and it was going to look perfect. And like, it's just not true. Like, that's just
yeah.
not, there's just so much going on. And each person in that team has so much going on. And, even if you win, there might be one person in the team that had a bad day, and you're all happy that you won, but they might feel sad because they didn't contribute what they wanted to contribute. And it's just such a complicated team to be in,
Mm,
because we have graphs and we have feedback of how every single person did, how long they did, to the 10th, what they did each half a lap.
please.
And yeah, I think it's amazing when it all goes fluidly and it actually feels how it looks to the
Mm.
crowd, to whoever's watching. But yeah, there's always a lot of intricate things going on, and within the team, people on good days and bad days, even when you win.
Yeah. And how are you feeling about your chances in the Olympics? Obviously, like looking at the results, the New Zealand team seem to be the big competition currently. They've got the New Zealand road race champion, Ali Wollaston, who's an incredible road rider in her own right. But then there's also the Germans who are incredible always. I fancy that the Germans being good at something that rewards efficiency. Not to lay into stereotypes, but I feel I can get away with it doing a German degree and being so close, mentally to that country. And then equally you've got like the Italians with Elisa Balsamo, former world road race champion. You know, there's a lot of talent around. Like, so yeah, how are you feeling, and who do you think your big competition will come from?
Yeah, I think it's the most competitive like period of time in women's team suit like there's ever been, because it's mental. When we went to the World Championships last year, we thought, we could come fifth or we could win. There's 5 teams that are really going to be pushing for the win here, and I think maybe in some previous years that's not been the case. There's
Mm,
maybe 2 or 3 teams really that are pushing for that win. So yeah, it's intense. Like, we got the USA as well. Chloe Dygart's come back, so
mhm.
there's Italy, there's France. France have been going really fast. There's New Zealand. Yeah, the Germans, of course. There's a lot of competition, and yeah, obviously everyone's going to be targeting the Olympics this year, so you don't know in the other competitions if they're trying different things out, if they're trying certain people out, you know, they might not be sending their A team or their A strategy to every single race. So yeah, it's hard to know until you get to the games, but yeah, it's going to be pretty tight, I'd say.
Yeah, and actually, this is something I've kind of only just realised a second ago while you were talking. Like, because obviously the French are on a home track, and
Yeah.
theoretically that gives them a slight advantage. But how much do the sort of track dynamics and the kind of, most tracks that you race on are going to be 250 long, but even within that, there's differences and different dimensions. Like, I'm trying to think, like the Munich one. I think actually Munich was short, but like other ones, you might have a shorter straight or, you know, a longer straight. Does that change how the TP is ridden, or does that not have such a factor as it does in sprinting, for an example?
Yeah. No, each track feels quite different to each other, and it doesn't change necessarily your strategy, you know, who's doing what and who's going where, nothing like that, but it can take a good few sessions to dial in your line. So in team pursuit, you'd kind of flow black line in the bankings, and then as you're coming into the straights, it would kind of send you outwards a bit, so closer to the red line, and then you'd cut back into the black line. And you all want to be in one line, following the same line, one behind each other. And you know, you can turn up to some tracks and it just feels like it's flinging you up or it's flinging you down, and people are feeling different things, and we're not flowing together in a team. And it feels horrible, to be honest, when you're not flowing like that. So in Manchester, obviously, we train there every week, and you could probably ride the line with your eyes closed. But yeah, so there is definitely a home advantage, but I think important races you try to get there early enough to have enough sessions to at least dial your line in a little bit. And on each track, your change will feel a little bit different, like how steep, at what point you need to turn right and then left, how steep and how much free speed the track gives you on your way back down. So yeah, there's a home advantage, but if you get there early enough, you can dial your team into the track.
Yeah, because actually I was just thinking actually about some of the other tracks that have been ridden in the years. Like, I don't know whether you did the Guadeloupe European Championships, but that was like a 333-meter track, so like half lap turns are even longer there, and is outdoors, and I think concrete or all weather, like Herne Hill almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, that makes it all very different, I guess. Yeah, so obviously you've got the Olympics on the horizon, and that's, I assume, going to be a very big goal for the year. You've got this new team that may or may have not been announced, so you might have heard it early in this chat, you might not, but it's a good team, definitely. How can people kind of keep up with you in general in terms of like social media and seeing what you're up to, where you're racing, that sort of thing?
I only really use Instagram, to be honest, and I've never been that amazing at it, but I'm getting better. I'm working on it. So yeah, my Instagram account, I'll generally post normally whilst we're at an event, and then a post afterwards of how it went.
Yeah, well, as I'm speaking literally right now, there will be a picture of your Instagram. I've got a bit better with video editing, so I can do that nowadays. Speaking of Instagram, there's a post that Eleanor put up 6 years ago, which is I think it was 6 years ago. I must have looked when we were first setting this up. But basically, you went to see a gig with her, and I went to school with that guy. You went to see, and it was like really weird, like
AD
jar.
Sullivan, was
Yeah,
it?
I went to school with
Yeah,
Addy.
no
Like,
way.
yeah, because he's from a town called village called Long Bennington, which is like just down the A1 from me. So we went to secondary school together, and it was so weird seeing Eleanor post about him. I was like, wait a minute, like I know that guy.
Yeah, I was pretty obsessed with him. I got the tickets.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, like yeah, because I was even in music class with him in GCSE. Like,
Wow.
and that's I don't know what his story is, but for me that was when he first sort of got into singing, from what I could tell.
Yeah.
So
Small
yeah,
world.
it's kind of small world moment. 'Cause
Yeah.
normally it's like 6 degrees of separation, and we've got like
Yeah.
2. But yeah, I mean, like, that's so weird. I just thought I'd drop that little nugget in for you.
Yeah, no, it's really weird.
Yeah, do you still listen to his music now? Because I know he got signed to Simon Cowell's label and then moved away from them for a bit. Yeah, he was on Psycho, and then I I just don't think it was the vibe,
Yeah.
if I'm honest. But he's
Well, I
still
did that
making
thing
stuff.
where I got extremely obsessed and it was all I listened to for like a year, and then I had to have a break. But I do still, yeah, I love his music. He's really good.
Yeah, actually, do you think, is there an element of your personality that does get like fixated on things? And you reckon that, if so, does that help you with team pursuing, where it's all about like attention to detail and numbers and absolutely nailing things, where you have to be kind of hyper focused, if you will?
Yeah, I think a lot of athletes are a bit that way, to be honest. Yeah, I definitely get obsessed with one song and I will listen to that on repeat for like 6 weeks and then I can never listen to it again because I'm just sick of it. But yeah, I think more for me, more like I actually struggled a little bit with like how technical it's got with numbers and analysis and things because I don't fixate so much on stuff like that. I just I love training. I love exercising, to be honest. So like I have to complete what's set, and I love to tick off the plan. And yeah, I think my love for training is why I'm a professional athlete for a living.
Yeah. A final question, because I've kept you for much long enough, and I'm very appreciative of your time. What's your current song that you have to listen to, 20 million times a day?
Oh, it's a bit rogue because I don't know. We've just been to Australia on a trip with the team for like 5 weeks. And we were doing, if we were in the car, we'd have like you can make a jam on Spotify so everyone can add songs. And it's a country song. It's called Straight and Narrow. And I never listened to country in my life, but for some reason I'm just obsessed with this song.
Oh wow, okay. I
Yeah,
mean, Beyonce's made country famous and popular
true.
again, so
Yeah,
maybe it's
true.
a unconscious, like, or subconscious bias towards it nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, wow. I'll see if I can dig that song out and give it a listen myself, and I'll put a link to that.
Okay.
The most unlikely sales
Maybe
boost they've ever had.
I should have made something else up, but
You should have just picked like Baby Shark or something.
yeah.
That does get stuck in your head if you listen to it for too long.
Yeah, I
Um,
can imagine.
or any of the songs that my 1-year-old listens to,
Yeah, I bet.
because anything that calms her down, I'm like, great, that's going on. But they get stuck in your head, and
Yeah.
they're not the best songs in the world. I mean, 1-year-olds aren't really into songwriting or lyrics.
No, just a
Yeah.
catchy tune.
Yeah. I did say last question, but I promise this time it is the last question. What was your favourite song from Addy?
Well, the one that got me hooked was, is it, I'm gonna have to go on my Spotify. Is it
I'm
Someone to
going to
Love?
say State of Mind. Oh, Somebody to Love.
I think
Or
that was the
someone.
one.
Yeah.
Need Somebody
Somebody
to
to.
Love.
Yep.
That was the one that I first heard. Um, But then I just got obsessed with all of them, to be honest, and it was all I'd listen to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, I hope everything goes well this year. As we said, it's a big year for you. So yeah, I just fingers crossed it all goes well. I look forward to some gold medals in your future.
Thank you.
And special thank you goes to Megan for her time and Bespoke for helping setting this all up. I hope you enjoyed listening despite all the technical difficulties. Come visit us again.